Hey there, and welcome. We've all seen those headlines, right? People who drink coffee live longer, or eating chocolate is linked to better memory. Well, a lot of those stories come from a very specific, very common type of research. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on it, the cross-sectional study.
I mean, think about it for a second. How on earth do researchers figure out what's going on with the health of thousands or even millions of people all at once? They can't follow everyone for their entire lives. Well, the secret is a method that's a whole lot like taking a picture.
And that's really the key to this whole thing. If you can just get your head around this one simple idea, the snapshot, I promise everything else is going to click right into place. It explains both the power and the limits of this kind of research.
So here it is, the official definition. In a cross-sectional study, researchers pick one single moment. Just one. And at that moment, they measure two things for every single person. The exposure, let's say, do you exercise regularly? And the outcome, like, do you have high blood pressure? Everything gets measured at the exact same time. It's not a movie showing how things develop. It's just one single frozen frame.
Okay, so the researchers have taken this big snapshot of an entire population. What do they do with it? How do they organize all that information to find any meaningful patterns? Well, they use a surprisingly simple but really powerful blueprint. And here it is. This is the classic 2x2 table, and it's the heart of the analysis. Once they have that snapshot, they can take every single person and put them into one of these four boxes. Box A, those are the folks with the exposure and the disease. Box B is for people with the exposure but no disease. Box C is the opposite, no exposure, but they do have the disease. And finally, Box D is for people who have neither. It's clean, it's simple, and it's all based on where everyone stood at that one specific moment in time. All right, so the picture's been taken, everybody's been sorted into their box. But what can we actually learn from all this? What's the main thing that this one single snapshot can really measure? The big word here is prevalence. That's really all it is. Prevalence is just a fancy way of saying how common a disease or an exposure is in that population right now, at the time of the snapshot. It's not about how many new cases are popping up, but how many cases exist in total. And this is where it gets interesting, because you can look at this snapshot from two different angles. On one hand, you can ask, is the disease more widespread in the exposed group than in the unexposed group? You're comparing the prevalence of the disease. Or you can flip the whole question around and ask, is the exposure more common in people who have the disease than in people who don't? See? Either way, you're looking for a connection, an association, in that one frozen moment. But, and this is a huge but, that brings us to the single biggest catch with this kind of study. It's a problem we've all heard of, and you absolutely have to keep it in mind when you read those health headlines. Let's say a study finds that people who have heart disease also tend to have high cholesterol. The snapshot clearly shows those two things happening together. That's the association. But, and here's the kicker, because we measured everything at the exact same time. Exactly. We have no way of knowing this sequence of events. Did the high cholesterol come first and eventually cause the heart disease? Or maybe did the heart disease itself or the medicines people take for it somehow cause the high cholesterol? We just can't tell from the snapshot. This is the classic chicken or egg problem. In science, they sometimes call it reverse causality, and it is the fundamental limitation of a cross-sectional study. It can show a link, but it can't prove cause and effect. So you might be thinking, well, if they can't prove what causes what, why even bother? And that's a great question, but it turns out these simple snapshots are actually incredibly important for science and for public health. For one, these studies are fantastic for generating ideas, or what scientists call a hypothesis. They're a quick and cheap way to get a first look at a health issue and see if there's a link worth investigating with a more complex study. They're also absolutely critical for public health planning. If you know the prevalence of diabetes in your town right now, you know how many health services you need to provide. They can even do practical things, like help researchers check if the information people report about themselves, like their height and weight, is actually accurate. So here's the bottom line. Cross-sectional studies are powerful. They give us an invaluable, instant picture of what's happening in a population. They tell us what's going on right now, but they don't tell us the whole story of how we got there. So the next time you see one of those headlines, you'll know what to ask. Is this the full movie, or is it just a single powerful snapshot?